Weekday. Good morning. Good morning. We're back. Yes, we survived the weekend. A little bit of a heat wave, my goodness, but I don't know about you, but I've been waiting for summertime and it came with, huge over this weekend. Man, it's hard to believe, you think about, uh, this is all, I don't know what it was like where you are, but if you're in the New York metro area, we went from a weekend where the temperatures went down as low as the upper 40s overnight to now we're in the 90s. We're looking at a potential heat wave. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. It's just crazy. But we're doing well. Hopefully you're doing well. Hope you had a great weekend and had a chance to relax and just do some stuff. And weekends are made for doing stuff. What can I say? But it's great to be back with you as we launch a new week here on Breakfast with Jesus. And so thank you so much. We've got, wow, it's like we've just got a couple of people here with us today. Bernadette, Jane, Gloria, there's Patty, Halo. Great to have you guys along with me this morning. Hey, Loft. Yeah. You're in rare form today. What can I say? And there's Elaine. Good morning. So we've been looking at the life of Peter this past week, and you didn't get the alert today. Oh no! Facebook at it again. I don't know what to tell you. Facebook has its idiosyncrasies, so I don't know why you didn't get the alert. I really don't. But let's see, we've got folks starting to drift in here. We've got Linda, Cheryl, Donna. You had to go on my page. Well, I don't know. Again, there's supposed to be somewhere on this video in the corner of one of the lower corners, supposed to be a bell that you can tap, that alerts whenever I go live. So I don't know. It's just, oh, you didn't either. See, tell you what, boy, Facebook, it's conspiracy. I have no idea, guys. I really don't. But anyway, you're here, and that's all that matters, right? So again, we've been looking at the life of Peter and just, hopefully getting some encouragement when we see him just being Peter, and having his difficulties in understanding what the Lord is saying and what is going on and everything. It's it's good because again, you look at him and you realize, man, he wasn't as I'm just as bad as him, or he's bad as whatever. It's an encouragement. I think so anyway. So let's look at a few more examples of Peter's life. And there's our other Patty. Good morning. So Matthew 17, we have this amazing story of Jesus taking Peter, James, and John with him up on the mountain, and Jesus becomes transfigured. The glory starts to pour out of him. Says his face shone like the sun, his garments became white as light. And all of a sudden Moses and Elijah appear and they're talking with him. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that. That would have been an amazing encounter. And so, after this happens, Peter says to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 tabernacles here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. And while he was still speaking, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. I mean, Peter here is just demonstrating, I think, so clearly our human tendency to just pop off with the first thing that comes to mind in a situation as profound as this, yeah, I'm like, wow, uh, this has never happened. What happened here in Matthew 17 with Jesus getting transfigured and having a meeting with Moses and Elijah, that never ever happened on the earth before, nor did it ever happen again. I mean, it's like, what? Crazy. And yet Peter can't keep his mouth shut. He just, you know, you almost wonder if he was like somehow spiritually delirious, in this moment because of what was going on, and he just can't help himself. And you know what? That is such a common kind of tendency that we have, that we think that I need to insert myself here and do something. Really? Really? Here you are, witnessing, as I say, one of the greatest encounters with God that no one ever did this before, nor again. And you want to build 3 tabernacles? But see, this is something that we have to be aware of. We somehow feel like we must add to something that God is doing, that he just wants us to receive and enjoy, right? We just have this thing that says, oh, wow, this is awesome. Let me do this or let me do that. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Did God ask you to do anything? They were simply there to witness something that was, I believe, simply designed to expand their vision, their understanding of God and what his purposes are. And, instead of just kind of basking in just the amazing aspect of this, Peter wants to do something. He wants to build something. And I've done, a teaching on this. The Lord had spoken to me many years ago out of this passage, how, Peter's desire to build these tabernacles, one for Moses, Elijah, and Jesus, all speaks to a tendency that we have to memorialize and create a monument, really create an idol out of something that God is doing. That's really this, what this is all about. When you think about it, Peter wants to build 3 tabernacles to honor Moses, Elijah, and Jesus. Now, what did he think? That they were going to just stay there on the mountain forever? Probably. He probably thought, oh, this is the start of a whole new dispensation. So we need to build something that these guys can stay in, and people are going to come here and they're going to... No, no. But again, that's our tendency. And it's a manifestation of religion, right? The whole religious spirit that wants us to create something that ends up being a substitute for God, for having encounters with God. It's like, well, we've got this over here, so we'll no. I'm not going to build something that I think is a good idea that God never told me to do. And that's what Peter was basically saying. And, and when the Lord spoke to me through this passage, he was saying that there are usually 3 emphases that God, is warning us, that he doesn't want us to create an idol out of a previous move of God, which is what Moses represents, right? Moses represented one of the greatest moves of God in history with Israel, and bringing them out of Egypt into the promised land, and the tendency that we have to memorialize and idolize the good old days or the way things were and should always be. And then you've got Elijah, who represents a tendency to want to stay focused on the future to the detriment of what's happening now, what God wants us to do now. We're so caught up in, future prophecies and the fulfillment of future prophecies, and that's all we focus on, and we're not doing anything in the in the way of bringing the gospel into the world because we're just so future focused. And then the one about Jesus, building a tabernacle of Jesus, you would think, well, what's wrong with that? Well, anything that Jesus wants to do in us and through us can be idolized. It's like, well, this is the word of the Lord, and to, you make it into something that you know we're never going to stop following that. Well, that's what he said, but what is he saying? Jesus made it clear, right, that we live not by bread alone, but by every fresh proceeding word that comes out of the mouth of the Father. That's the literal translation of that verse. We live by the word of the Lord, and that just means that we're staying in this kind of free, organic lifestyle of walking with him and saying, all right, what are we doing today? What's on your heart, for this month or this year, Lord? And we're not going to stay stuck. I lived that. I lived that particular kind of ministry where the word of the Lord that was given basically became an idol. It was like, this is what well, yes, it's something that he called us to do, but 5-10 years later, you're still stuck there. So anyway, that's a whole nother topic, but it was a powerful word when the Lord began to show me that. And so, but Peter gives us, this graphic example of the tendency, that we have to want to somehow add to what God is doing, but add something that he never, Jesus never said anything about that. It's like Peter just had this bright idea in the midst of this awesome moment to do something, and it's like, really? Yes, that's our problem. Right? We just feel like, oh, we've got to do this. Let's let the Lord show us. So, a good example here, from Peter of a tendency that we all have and that we just need to be aware of. Say, Lord, I'm not going to build a monument, that you didn't tell me to build. And I don't know that you can have memorials over things that God has done. That's a testimony. Testimonies are awesome, but they're not supposed to become an idol either, right? So from there, we move into the next chapter, chapter 18. And I'm not sure what prompted this, but again, Peter, I think Peter really, in some cases, got the implications of what Jesus was saying. And for Peter, it was so shocking. It was like, wait, what? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? God is not offended. He's not ever offended by our questions, which I love, right? So in Matthew 18, Jesus has been, giving us this amazing example here of the forgiveness that we have, right? And he tells this amazing story of, where are we here? Yeah. I'm trying to find the verse. Where am I? I think these are over here. Okay. So Jesus has been teaching about, the little ones, and about how, you have to be ruthless against sin and all this sort of thing. And then he talks about how if someone has 100 sheep and one goes astray, does he not leave the 99? Of course he does, right? It's not the will of anyone that God should lose anybody. But here, he makes a very pointed remark. Jesus says here, he says, and if your brother sins, go and reprove him in private. If he listens to you, you've won your brother. So he's talking about dealing with relational issues, right? Because that happens. We live in a fallen world still, where people, they mess with us and we mess with them. And Jesus was laying down some principles on how to deal with that, right? If the person won't listen to you, bring along some witnesses. And if they're still not going to, resolve the issue, if it's serious enough, then you just basically have to say, okay, you can go elsewhere. We're not going to have you in our fellowship because you don't want to maintain the unity and the love, of God. And so Uh, Peter, at this point, this is Matthew 18:21 and 22. He says to Jesus, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Right? Because, Jesus is talking to us about, if somebody sins against you, tell them and get it resolved, right? And so Peter's thinking about it. You can just see the wheels turning, right? He's going, oh my gosh. Thinking about all the times that Andrew got him angry. Andrew, his brother, right? And, because that's what little brothers do, right? And so you just can see him like, what? I got to go to him and tell him and oh my God, Peter's a guy. He's a fisherman. It's like, what? I don't, this touchy feely stuff. I don't want anything to do with that. So you can just, hear him saying, Lord, how often, shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? I mean, Peter's thinking 7 times. Andrew probably reached that limit a long time ago, and you want me to still forgive him? Right? And so, Jesus just blows the doors off of that and says, no, I don't say to you 7 times, up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. So like Peter's head just spinning, with this new concept of what? No, he's not saying 490 times. He's saying there's no limit. That we understand that he's saying, no, there's, put a limit on how many times you're going to forgive someone who comes to you, in humility, asking forgiveness for something that they did to hurt you or disappoint or offend or whatever, right? So that is just, again, it's just such a typical human response because, you just get tired of dealing with people that are struggling sometimes. And it may not have been Andrew, it may have been somebody else, in Peter's family that was just one of those kind of people that always seemed to be, creating issues. And, Peter not being perhaps the most relational guy, is sitting there going, is it really every time? you know, and, we understand today that the Lord wants us to value relationship more than anything else. And that, unfortunately, that idea is not highly valued in many Christian circles. And it's sad to say, because here we are, the ones who have been given the ability, the power to love others unconditionally, right? Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you. And we know he loves us unconditionally. And we know that there is nothing that can separate us from his love. But our problem is that we get offended, we get upset, people make us angry. And to maintain a heart that values relationship above everything else, because that's the essence of love, right? If I'm supposed to love someone unconditionally, that means that their presence in my life relationally has to be a very high value for me. Otherwise, I will just say, no, I'm not going to love you unconditionally. I'm pushing you away, or I'm leaving, or, whatever. Again, let me make it very clear whenever I talk about these kinds of issues, not talking about abusive situations, right? That's a whole nother thing that needs to be dealt with by getting, extricating yourself out of that environment. So we're not talking about abuse. We're talking about the normal kinds of relationships that we all struggle with, right? And so Peter, again, just being very human in his response, it's like, do I have to do this 7 times? I mean, to him, it was like, that's huge. Jesus said, sorry, there's no limits on this. There's no limits on how we are to treat one another and how to receive one another, how to love one another. You just better get used to this new kind of lifestyle, Peter. You know, and again, you can just probably imagine him, walking away, shaking his head, going, wow, man, that is crazy that you actually want me to forgive somebody, at that level, unlimited. Um, and then Jesus, goes on to give this amazing story that we're all familiar with of a man who owed the equivalent of like $1 million, and he's called in to pay the debt. He can't. He falls on his knees, begs for mercy, and the guy says, "You know what? I'm having a good day today. I'm going to just rip up that bill. You don't owe me anything." It's like, what? And then of course we know that the man leaves, sees somebody that owes him the equivalent of like $10, and instead of forgiving that man for his debt, he has him thrown in jail because that's what they did to debtors. It's ridiculous. But, you know, that's, to me, that this story is just such a powerful example and powerful truth that, we're the ones that have been forgiven the $1,000,000 by God. What we've done is that, immeasurable sin against God yet, and he just said, okay, I love you, I'm going to forgive you. And so we're called, to be that way toward others. And that was the message that Jesus wanted to hammer home, with Peter and with his other disciples, that, yeah, this is what love looks like. You just be willing to forgive people and to release them from what they owe you, right? And I bring this out as well many times when we talk about this passage, how when people offend us or hurt, disappoint, whatever, it's like that's a debt. They owed us respect and honor and love and didn't give it to us. So what are we going to do with that? Well, Jesus says, rip up the bill. Say, Lord, you know what? You don't owe me a thing. I forgive you. I release you. And that's, what Peter was kind of being confronted with, his natural tendency to put a limit on what he was willing to do to love someone, to forgive them, to stay in relationship with that person. Peter had a limit. And so do we. Let's be honest, right? We all have limits that we learned and put in place. That, I can only go so far. And again, if we're not talking about abuse, Jesus says, he has no limits in his love and forgiveness of us. And so that's what we get to do as well. And so I don't know what that means for you in terms of your life and the relationships that you have, but for me, it has meant that I have to maintain connection with people insofar as it's possible for me to do so. Obviously, if they're, walking away and leaving and don't want anything more to do with me, I have to let them go. I can't, take responsibility for their choice. But insofar as it's up to me and I have the ability, I'm going to maintain, by God's grace, I'm going to maintain the high value for connection and for relationship with that person, even, if they've not been very easy to deal with, those extra love required, folks. It's like, wow. All right, so let me stop there. We'll look at a few more of these tomorrow. Peter is just a veritable font of these kinds of examples of of life in relationship with the Lord. So I hope it's been a little helpful for you. Let me say good morning to the rest of this amazing breakfast club. Let's see. Hey, Bishnu, how you doing, man? Out there in Nepal. It's been a while. Yeah, good afternoon is right. Yes, Elaine. Yes, human being, not a human doing. I love that. um, let's see. Who else have we got here? Oh my gosh, I'm just scrolling through. Um, okay. I think I got everybody. Let me check over here real quick. Let's see. Yeah, I think I got everybody. If I missed you, please forgive me. I do appreciate everybody that does hang out here with us in our breakfast club. So thank you for sharing the video, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 7:30 Eastern. So have an awesome day. All right. Thanks so much.